You let your employee keep his job after a mistake that should have ended their career. You forgive your friend who lied about you. You give everyone a second chance. But the people you spare don't seem grateful. Instead, they grow distant. They whisper. And one day you find out they've been working against you. You're left wondering why. The obvious answer is that people are ungrateful. But the real answer is far stranger. It's not that your kindness was too soft. It's that your kindness was too heavy. It became a weight they couldn't lift, and they needed you gone to breathe again. This same strange logic played out 2,000 years ago. Julius Caesar stood at the pinnacle of Roman power. He had just won a brutal civil war. His enemies were at his mercy. And then he did something almost no one expected. He spared them. He spared almost all of them. The Roman historian Suetonius writes that Caesar executed virtually no senators. He let them keep their titles, their estates, their pride. He invited them back into the Senate. He treated them as colleagues. And those same senators, numbering over 60, gathered on the Ides of March. They surrounded him, they drew knives, and they stabbed him 23 times. The man who had been so merciful was murdered by the very people he had saved. Why did 60 men kill a leader who almost never executed anyone? That question has haunted historians for 2 millennia, and the answer reveals something deeply unsettling about human nature. To understand Caesar, you have to look at the man he was compared to. A generation earlier, another Roman general named Sulla had seized power. He had a very different approach. The ancient writer Plutarch tells us that Sulla drew up lists of his enemies. These were called proscriptions. He posted the names in the Roman Forum. Anyone on that list could be killed without punishment, and the killer received a reward. Hundreds of senators and knights were hunted down. Their property was confiscated. Sulla didn't just defeat his foes, he annihilated them. And after that bloodbath, Sulla ruled Rome unchallenged. He eventually retired and died of natural causes. No one stabbed him. No conspiracy of 60 senators formed against him. He was safe precisely because he had been so ruthless. Now look at Caesar. Caesar saw Sulla's cruelty and thought it was a mistake. He believed mercy would win him loyalty. The Latin word for this mercy was clementia, and he practiced it obsessively. After his victory, he pardoned rival generals like Brutus and Cassius. He restored the statues of Pompey, his chief enemy. He even promoted former adversaries to the highest magistracies. As the historian Adrian Goldsworthy notes, Caesar wanted to rebuild the Republic, not destroy it. But his clemency had a hidden edge. Every time Caesar forgave someone, he reminded them of something. He held the power of life and death, and he was choosing to let them live. That act of giving life was a demonstration of total dominance. The Roman philosopher Seneca would later call this the tyranny of the gift. A gift you cannot refuse or repay is not a gift. It is a shackle. Consider what it felt like to be a Roman senator spared by Caesar. You had fought against him. You had lost. You expected to be executed or exiled. Instead, Caesar smiled and offered you his forgiveness. At first, you might feel relief. But then the weight settles. Every day you walk into the Senate, you are walking through a door Caesar unlocked. Your position, your wealth, your very life is a gift from the man who beat you. You cannot look him in the eye as an equal. He has taken your right to be his rival. That gnaws at you. The Roman senator Cassius was one of those pardoned men. Plutarch tells us that Cassius was a proud, fierce man. He had commanded a fleet against Caesar. After his pardon, he was given honors, but he was never at ease. His resentment grew in the shadows. He became the chief plotter against Caesar. Brutus, too, was a recipient of Caesar's mercy. Caesar had supposedly loved Brutus, had spared him after the Battle of Pharsalus, and even made him governor. But Brutus felt the same unbearable debt. He couldn't live as a man who owed everything to another man's whim. The only way to erase that debt was to erase Caesar. As the historian Mary Beard puts it, Caesar's assassination was not just a political act, it was a desperate reclamation of personal honor. Conspirators called themselves liberators. They were liberating themselves from the obligation Caesar had trapped them in. This is the dark side of mercy. It can feel like a form of psychological imprisonment. Sulla's cruelty created corpses. Caesar's mercy created walking ghosts, ghosts who still held their daggers. They had their networks, their wealth, their reputations. And they had a burning need to prove they were not slaves. When Brutus raised his dagger, he wasn't just killing a tyrant, he was killing his own shame. This explains the sheer number of conspirators. Over 60 senators took part. Some of them had never been harmed by Caesar directly, but they had all witnessed his clemency toward others. They saw what it meant. They realized that in Caesar's Rome, every career, every honor, every breath was a gift from the dictator. That was an intolerable existence for men raised to be masters of the world. So they banded together to prove they still had some agency. The very act of conspiring was a way to feel powerful again. Now pull this ancient pattern into your own life. Think about the last time you were overly generous with someone. Maybe you let a friend borrow money and never asked for it back. Maybe you forgave a partner for something others would not. You felt noble. But how did that person act around you afterward? Did they seem grateful or did they seem uneasy? Did they start avoiding you? Did little resentment spring up? There's a reason for that. Modern psychology backs up what ancient Rome reveals. A researcher named Marcel Mauss, writing a century ago, found that gifts are never free. They create obligations. When you receive a gift you cannot repay, you feel indebted. And indebtedness can curdle into hostility. More recently, psychologists have run experiments on unsolicited help. In one study, people who received a large, unasked for favor actually rated the giver less favorably. They felt belittled. They felt the favor was a reminder of their low status. This is especially true if the giver never allows you to reciprocate. When you constantly forgive, you may be telling the other person that you are so far above them that their transgressions do not even count. That is a powerful, invisible insult. On the day of the assassination, Caesar was handed a warning note but didn't read it. He walked into the Senate House. The conspirators clustered around him, pretending to petition for something. Then the first dagger struck. Ancient sources say that when Caesar saw Brutus among the attackers, he stopped resisting. He had pardoned that man. He had loved that man. And that was the final blow to his spirit. He fell at the foot of a statue of Pompey, his old rival, his blood pooling on the marble floor. It was a brutal, ironic end. The man who refused to kill his enemies was killed by the men he refused to kill. Think of a workplace you've been in. There's always that one manager who never disciplines anyone. At first, everyone calls him cool. But soon, people start complaining. The good employees feel their efforts are devalued. The struggling employees feel condescended to. And the manager, who only wanted to be liked, becomes the target of everyone's frustration. That manager may not get stabbed, but they'll be knifed in the back by a whisper campaign. They'll be passed over for promotion. Their team will quietly undermine them, and when they ask why, they'll only hear that they were too soft. But softness isn't the real issue. The issue is that their kindness removed all lines. It made the world feel like a place without standards. And people crave standards. Standards give them a way to measure their own worth. When you forgive everything, you take away the currency of worth. The Roman Senate was a place of intense competition for honor. Caesar's permanent mercy destroyed that competition. He turned the Senate into a stage where he was the only one with any real power. Everyone else was just an actor reading lines he had approved. That was a kind of death for them already. So they chose to make it a literal death for him. The next time you feel that urge to be endlessly merciful, pause. Ask yourself if you're truly helping someone. Or are you just proving that you can? Are you giving them a fresh start, or are you trapping them in your shadow? Because extreme kindness is not just a gesture of goodwill. It is a claim of power. And power, even the softest power, will always provoke resistance. Your employee you let keep his job after that huge mistake. He doesn't look at you with gratitude every morning. He looks at you and sees a constant reminder of his failure. Your friend you forgave for that lie. She feels the lie every time you smile. It festers. And one day they may turn on you, not despite your mercy, but because of it. Julius Caesar learned this with daggers. You may learn it with silences, cold shoulders, or a knife in your back. So spare if you must, but spare with care. And never forget, some gifts are heavier than chains. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. A new story every week.